Hello friends, I am C. Arup Das Gupta and I welcome you all once again to my YouTube channel. Today I'll take you quickly through a very important topic, which is the uploading of GSTR 1. As we all know that the last date for filing of GSTR 1 for the month of July is September 5th, the Teachers' Day. But we need to prepare for the same from now itself because of two reasons. First thing is the reconciliation with our partners like our vendors and the persons who are going to take benefit of the input credit for the tax paid to us, that can be done prior to uploading of the final GSTR 1 5th September. Second reason being the GSTR 3B that we need to file on 20th of August, that can also be corrected to a great extent if we do all the reconciliations prior to that. So friends, I'll just quickly take you through GSTR 1. The GSTR 1 Excel utility is already provided by the GSTR network, which is one of the easiest ways to capture all the data that you need to file for the GSTR 1, which is the primary return, first phase of the return. In the GSTR one, the first page that you open, we have got the as usual the helps and instruction list out here as to how to take about it, and how many sheets are there and what you need to do and how many data sheets we need to fill up, and all the details are given in this helps or instruction sheet, which I hope you'll just go through, and it's very easily understandable from here. From here, I'll just go to the first sheet that we need to prepare, which is the data to be given for B2B. Now friends, what do we mean by B2B? It's a transaction which happens between two business houses. It can be either between a proprietorship and a proprietorship and a proprietorship and a company, and vice versa. There can be so many type of permutations and combinations, but the ultimate aim out here is to see that one business entity is buying or is availing the service from another business entity for its own business, either for onward business or for its own consumption. So here in this B2B list of Excel utility, the first thing that we need to give is the EU GSTN or EUIN number of the person receiving the goods or the services. Next, we need to give the invoice number that we have raised for on the particular, for the particular supply. Third, we need to give the invoice date, the date on which the invoice is being raised, invoice value or the taxable value on which the final invoice is being raised. The place of supply holds a very important position in terms of the GST Act, as you all know, because there is a bifurcation of the three kind of taxes that we need to charge and collect and pay. Because if it's an interstate, the transaction is between one state and another state, we need to pay IGST. Whereas if the transaction is considered to be intrastate, that is within the state, we need to pay central GST and the state GST. So friends, in the terms of GSTR 1 also, place of supply holds a very important position. Next thing which you need to mention is whether the particular supply you are rendering, that is under reverse charge, yes or no. Because if it's under reverse charge, then no tax will be due on your part. Okay. So the next thing, friends, that we need to see is whether the invoice is for regular supply or it's a supply towards SEZ with payment of IGST, or it's a supply to SEZ supplies without payment of IGST, or it's a deemed exports. We need this out here in the invoice type. We need to consider it very carefully because this will have an impact on the refund applications that we are going to make in the future. After this, we need to give the e-commerce GSTN, if any, through whom we are actually selling the particular product. For instance, I am selling a particular product to another business house through through one of the e-commerce sites. So the e-commerce site through which I am selling, making the particular supply, their GSTN will come here in this particular column. Next is the most important thing, which is the rate column, wherein we need to give the specific rate that is chargeable on the particular supply. And here again, the taxable value will appear. The taxable value is considered to be the value on which we are actually going to pay the tax, whether it's a CGST, SGST or an IGST. It is a taxable value on which the tax factor will be considered. Okay. Now, if in case of any cess if there is any cess, then that particular cess amount also needs to be calculated out here, and that needs to be shown here, so that, because whatever friends we are putting into this utility, that itself will be imported into the offline utility from where we'll upload the returns. Now, I hope this sheet is clear to you. Now, going to the next sheet, wherein we are going to put in the data of B2C large. What do we mean by B2C is very clear to most of us. It is business to customer, and wherein we are selling it to a person who is not using it or buying it for in the furtherance of his business, either for his own consumption, his business, or towards making any further or future supplies in that regard. So, and why are we mentioning it as large? Because here the invoice value is more than 2.5 lakhs. So friends, if the value of the invoice is less than 2.5 lakhs, it will not come under B2CL, it will come under B2CS. But if it's only above 2.5 lakhs, it will come in this particular sheet, wherein again we need to give all the data, like we need to give the invoice number, the invoice date, the invoice value, the place of supply, and of course the rate will come, and taxable value will also be reflected here. The cess amount, if any, that will also come. If I am selling this particular, making this particular supply through any e-commerce website, okay, then the particular e-commerce website details will also be available here. That also needs to be put in here, because there is a calculation, there are different provisions for e-commerce operators which will come into place, whether we need to see the kind of TCS that needs to be deducted and what are the payments that are to be made. Now friends, we'll discuss about the next important thing, which is B2C small. In B2C large, what we've seen is the turnover value has to be above 2.5 lakhs. In B2C small, what we'll do is for business to consumer transactions which are below 2.5 lakhs, we'll give a consolidated data for every month. Here basically the things we have to give is we have to bifurcate it into two parts. One is E, okay, which means through the goods have been sold through e-commerce, okay, platform, and OE, which is other than e-commerce platform sales. Next thing we need to give is the place of supply, wherein the things have actually been sold. So if the place of supply is the delivery of goods have happened in Andhra Pradesh, so we are mentioning here the Andhra Pradesh. Next we need to mention the consolidated rate of 5% and the taxable value. So here friends, as you need to know that here in B2C small, what we are giving is, we are giving the total sales made through e-commerce platforms during that month in a particular state for a particular rate. The taxable value has to be given lump sum instead of any invoice value. So, for example, if you are selling in 3 states, okay, if you are selling in 3 different states, say interstate supplies are there and intra-state supplies are there. So, what we need to give is the state-wise details, whether it's through e-commerce or not, or other than e-commerce, and the rates. So, suppose if I sold in Kerala, and it's through e-commerce networks I've sold in Kerala, and the rate for such particular goods is 12%. So I've given the rate of 12% and the amount taxable, but total considered taxable value of 2,50,000 for all the sales made by me during the month to Kerala. Okay. Similarly, for Andhra Pradesh, the Himachal Pradesh, the figure for the 12% rate, the sales is 3,50,000 for. So the consolidated data needs to be given. We don't have to give individual invoice-wise data here. So friends, from there we'll move on to create notes, debit notes, okay, for the registered dealers. Here friends, as we know, as with other things also, as other sheets also, here also we need to start with the GSTR number of the recipient, because it is for the particular person, for the registered dealer, he is going to reverse the input on this particular credit for which we are issuing the credit note. So since by issuing the credit note, what we are doing is we are actually reversing the output liability for us. Similarly, the input tax credit for the particular recipient of service, that also needs to be reversed by him. So this cross check will also be done through online, through auto population. We don't need to put in headache whether there are certain terms and conditions wherein in case of say price drop, it has been a specific condition has been given whether it can be the tax, auto tax can be reversed only if the input tax has been reversed by the recipient of the goods or services. So here we don't need to do that cross check whether the gentleman has done it or not. It can automatically be checked through this particular return itself from GSTR 1. If there is a mismatch, we'll come to know that no, the ITs had not been reversed, accordingly actions can be taken. After this, what we need to give, friends, is the invoice number or the advance receipt number. Now, when do we issue an invoice? That is very clear to us. That is at the time of delivery of the goods or after rendering of service. Okay, but in present GST regime, there has been one major change. Is even if you are receiving advance for goods also, you need to raise a document for that, which is known as the advance receipt voucher. So whether you are receiving an advance for goods or service, we need to issue advance receipt voucher. So that particular advance receipt voucher against which the credit note or the refund voucher is being issued, that detail has to be given here. Okay, basically for the advance receipt voucher number, the high chances of the refund voucher being issued, because credit note will only be issued against the invoice date, against the invoice. So suppose here we give the invoice details, the invoice date, and always, friends, remember that in GSTR all the returns, the dates are in DD, MM, YYYYY details. So if it is 8th of April, it is given as 8 and then APR April and then 2017. All the data will come in this particular format. Now coming next to the refund voucher number, which you have issued to the particular recipient of service, the refund voucher date, it's a credit note date, and here the document type is credit note. C is for credit note. What is the reason for this particular credit note? It's because of sales return. It's because of sales return. Where is the sales return come from? It's affected from Andhra Pradesh. That's the place the supply is given, and the refund voucher value is given. The total value of the refund voucher, which is 22,000, and the tax rate applicable on this particular refund voucher is 12%. Taxable value happens to be the value on which the refund actually is made. So, and the final thing is, here you have to inform in relation to credit note whether this particular credit note relates to the pre-GST period or the post-GST period. So if it's a pre-GST period thing which is happening, then we need to mention no, because we need to understand one thing, that if the goods for pre-GST period are returned to us after GST, we need to get an invoice, tax invoice from the person returning the goods to us. Okay, so we cannot issue him a credit note for goods for which were sold under the VAT regime and which are being returned by the recipient in the GST regime. That's why here we need to mention whether the credit note for the sales return is for the pre-GST period or for the post-GST period. Since it's for a post-GST period, that's why for this particular sales return, the credit note could be issued. Another situation of issuing a document in this relation is where we have taken the advance, friends, we have already mentioned here, we have taken the advance from the particular customer, and that's why we issued an advance receipt voucher. On our advance receipt date is given, the refund voucher number is given, and refund voucher date is given. Why is the refund voucher issued? Because maybe there is a change in service, and so I cannot render the service to the particular recipient of service, and to that extent I am issuing him a refund voucher. The detailed type of document is R, and what is the purpose of the return refund voucher here? Maybe a correction in the invoice would be required, or there is a deficiency in service, or maybe there's part of the services or particular goods are not to be to be supplied to us, and that's why we are issuing the refund voucher. So similar friends, here we have to mention what is the place of supply, the total refund voucher value, the rate applicable on the same, and the total taxable values. Okay, and here again we need to mention whether the transaction relates to pre-GST or post-GST, because this concept of advance receipt voucher and the refund voucher is always going to be post-GST, and so we need to understand here. So we need to put in a no here, it's going to be a no, because this whatever the advance receipt voucher is issued, it is in the post-GST period, and therefore the refund voucher whatever is issued, the refund voucher is mainly related to the fact that I'm going to refund this particular amount to you. That will also be issued in the post-GST period. Then from friends here, then we'll go to the credit note for unregistered dealers. Here the same thing, only in case of large vouchers, B2C large vouchers, large sales, what we need to do is we need to mention in case of unregistered dealers the refund voucher details, because here we have given the invoice-wise details for the sales made by us, and so the credit note for the particular tax period details have to be given on the basis of the particular invoice, because in the GST regime, as per section 15, whatever discounts are allowed post the issue of the invoice, that needs to be documented and it needs to be tagged to the particular invoice. That's why even for the large B2C transactions, the invoice tagging is done. So for which particular invoice the credit note is issued, that needs to be mentioned. What is the particular period? What is the particular reason for issuing the documents? If you can quickly go through the reasons. One is the sales return. Second is the post-sale discount. That means, I had already told him that if you are going to, take so many, number of particular product, after picking up say 100 products, we'll give you a 2% discount, or maybe whatever kind of discount we are going to offer to you after that. So that post sale discount, for that if you are issuing a credit note, that is also going to come here, which is mainly known as a primary incentive, which is given to the different houses. Similarly, there may be deficiency of service for which we are issuing the receipt voucher or the credit note. Suppose in case of service, I had agreed to a particular thing and I had actually raised the invoice, and I have, but now I realize that the invoice particular service need not be rendered right now. So what will happen is the deficiency in service, for that, to that extent of deficiency in service, the credit note can be issued. Correction in invoice can happen in terms of value, contact, or like the GST numbers and all the details can be corrected. So in that case, the correction in invoice, whatever is happening, that has to be details has to be given. Change in POS, we had thought that the POS originally would be actually Kerala, and so accordingly we had treated from Andhra Pradesh that it would be a high GST transaction. But later on we came to know that no, it's going to be a actually intra-state transaction between Andhra Pradesh itself, and so that's why because of the change in POS, maybe we need to issue a credit voucher, credit note to the particular person to the extent of the taxes concerned here. Okay, so this could be some of the reasons for which we are issuing, so that needs to be specified here. And also the place of supply where things are made, again the refund voucher value, the amount and the taxable value, all this needs to be mentioned, and the pre-GST, the post-GST period, that needs to be clearly mentioned here. Friends, and one thing we need to mention, which you are seeing here also, all the values in the GSTR 1, they need to have two digits, whether it's a number, it's a value, everything has to have 2 digits to be given by. That's a rate, even is mentioned on 2 digits, 5.00, 2 decimal digits have to be given in each place. The rate format is also, the date format is also very important. It's DDMMMYY format, which needs to be specifically followed in the entire kind of whatever we are doing. Even if you are generating it from a particular place, these things needs to be clearly mentioned, and this needs to be kept in mind so that there is no problem on our part on this particular thing. To this, friends, we got to give the details of the export details, whereas first we need to mention whether it is without payment of taxes, okay, or with payment of taxes. We need to give the invoice number, the invoice date, the value, the port code through which it is going, the shipping bill number through which the export was made, and the shipping bill date, and the rate applicable in case you have, and the rate applicable for the same would be like, for the particular export, whatever the tax rates applicable and the taxable value. And if it's exempted goods, it's mentioned as 0, and again here a taxable value is given. So friends, in exports basically we need to mention the category of whether it's without payment of taxes or with payment of taxes, and all other details to be given as an invoice number, invoice date, and invoice value. After this, we'll come to the total advances received. Here again, friends, we need to understand it's going to be a total lump sum figure, wherein we are giving on a basis of the place of supply where the supply is made. So advance details are to be given on the basis of place of supply, the rate applicable. So suppose you've got total advances of 87,515 from Kerala at the rate of 12%, I need to put it together, and if different rates are applicable, accordingly all the different rates will come here. So from Himachal Pradesh, if I've got advance of total amount of 15,445, considering all the customers from whom I've got it, from all the recipient of services, then the total amount has to be given out here, and if any cess amount is involved, that amount also has to be mentioned separately. Now, after taking the advance, it may so happen that the advance will be adjusted, okay, after, at the time of issuance of invoice. So the total amount of advance adjusted during the month, that also needs to be given on a lump sum basis, considering the place of supply, the rate applicable, and the total amount of advance adjusted, or the rate cess applicable. Okay, and then now we come finally to exempt supplies that are made to us. So interstate supplies to registered person at nil rated supplies, that needs to be given total. Other exempted other than nil rated supplies, okay, and other than nil rated or non GST supply. So if there is a excuse me, if there is a supply for, say, you're into the trading of fish and all, you have sold, packed fish, so that is coming here, and then that will come in certain places. And suppose you're selling fresh fish, so that is totally exempted, so that will again be, that will come here. And non-GST supplies, if any, if there is a non-GST supply that I have made to registered person during this particular month, that will come under the portion of non-registered supplies. In case of intrastate supplies to registered persons, we need to give the total details as a whole. The nil rated supplies need to be given, and the exempted supplies which are there, which you have made during the period, okay, like, rice, okay, loose rice, that is exempted, so that needs to be given here. Again, the non-GST supplies, if any, we have made to intrastate supplies to registered person, like, we have sold, say, alcoholic liquor for human consumption or whatever is there, that also needs to be given here, because though that is a non-GST supply, we need to keep a track of that to understand as to what amount is being sold. Similarly, for interstate supplies to unregistered persons and intrastate supplies to unregistered persons, the total details of the same need to be given here. Finally, friends, the details of the HSN code, line item wise, HSN code wise details we need to give as to whatever supplies you are making. So if you have 15 items which you are selling, and the HSN codes or the SSC codes are different for them, so we need to mention the HSN code or the SSC code here, service tariff code here, starting with 99, and we need to mention the description of the goods, the quantity unit of measurement what we are having, okay, the total quantity, the value of the same, the taxable value need to be calculated, total taxable value needs to be given here, and what is the amount of, what is the rate, what is the total amount of tax that is being charged, as to whether IGST is applicable, what is the amount of CGST, what is the amount of state or UT GST that has been paid on this, and the cess amount payable. So friends, here in the list it is HSN wise, the description is to be given, needs to be given, the quantity, value and taxable value along with all other tax paid needs to be given here. Finally, friends, this is the document, is like the documents which I am mentioning, like invoice for outward supplies. So we need to mention suppose our invoice starts from 1 and it goes to up to, say, 100. So we need to mention, whatever the numbering is to that particular number. We need to mention the total number of invoices that have been there, and we also need to mention here how many are cancelled, because friends, as per the GST Act, all the data, all the electronic data, all the data mentioned or maintained in the electronic data needs to be maintained properly. Similarly, friends, we need to mention all the details for inward supply and outward supply, the debit note and the delivery challan for job work, because for the job work, delivery challan will be given, and invoice for inward supply for unregistered person. The kind of, we are going to raise the inward supply thing for reverse charge mechanism, that also needs to be given here. If you have issued any refund voucher in relation to the received voucher already, advances received by us for which you are issuing a refund voucher, the details of all those things also need to be given here. Finally, friends, once you complete this entire data, we need to save it, and we need to go to the GST website, which is www.gst.gov.in. Here in the download section, you will get an offline tool. You need to download this return offline tools, and from here, once you download the return offline tools and you kind of install it in the system, it will ask for all the data. Once you give all the data, then what will happen is you have the option to actually import all the files here. So here we can go and import all the files, and from here import Excel. We can import all the sections at one go from the particular Excel we have completed right now, or we can take one by one department at one time, and we can also import the CSV of the same or copy the Excel out here. But friends, what I would suggest is just do the import Excel utility properly first, and then we need to go for import Excel. And once the import Excel is completed, okay friends, so now once your Excel is imported properly, if there is no problem, then it's going to be saved, and you can always save it will ask you to save a JSON file. We need to save the JSON file in a particular location, and then we need to go back to gst.gov.in, do our login, and go to the return section, return dashboard. From there, you will get a utility to upload, the offline utility. So in that particular place, you'll be asked to upload your JSON file. Once you upload your JSON file, your GSTR1 data will be uploaded. But remember, friends, there's a difference between upload and filing. You're just uploading the data. How will this help if you don't know? Your customers, they can go and go into their return login and go for the GSTR 2A, and in the GSTR 2A they can actually see whatever invoice details you have filed. They can actually see them and cross check, and by doing that we can always have a full proof checking of whatever invoice we have raised. Thank you very much, friends, for your patient listening. And I would just request you all to kindly go through the same. And in case there is any doubt, you can always mail me at arup.gst@gmail.com. And I will request you to kindly follow my YouTube channel, Arup Das Gupta, for future updates on this. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day ahead.